Asterisk asterisk the old woman. Asterisk asterisk. Jake had always enjoyed taking late-night drives. They cleared his mind after long, stressful days. One particularly cool autumn evening, he decided to take a different route, an old country road he hadn't driven on before. The road was deserted and lined with thick trees that seemed to stretch endlessly into the dark sky. As his headlights cut through the misty night, he noticed a figure standing by the side of the road, a frail, elderly woman. She was wearing a long, faded coat and holding a worn-out handbag. Jake felt a twinge of concern. It wasn't safe for anyone to be out here alone, especially an old woman at this hour. He slowed down and pulled over beside her, rolling down his window. "Do you need a ride?" he asked. The woman turned her head slowly towards him. Her face was pale, wrinkled with age, and her eyes seemed strangely distant, as if lost in thought. After a moment of silence, she nodded and shuffled towards the passenger side. Jake unlocked the door, and she climbed in without a word. The car filled with a faint, musty smell, like old clothes that had been stored away for too long. He tried to make small talk as he continued driving, asking where she was headed and how long she had been walking, but the woman remained silent, staring straight ahead with an unsettling stillness. As the miles passed, Jake grew increasingly uneasy. There was something off about her, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, but he tried to push the feeling aside, reasoning that she was just a tired old woman in need of help. After about 15 minutes, the old woman finally spoke. "Turn left up ahead," she said, her voice raspy and hollow. Jake obeyed, steering onto a narrow, winding road. The trees grew denser, their branches almost blocking out the moonlight. The further they went, the more isolated they became. "Here," she suddenly said, pointing to a spot in the darkness. Jake squinted but saw nothing, a stretch of road with no houses or lights. "Are you sure this is where you want to be dropped off?" he asked, glancing at her. The old woman turned her head and smiled for the first time since entering his car. It was an unsettling smile, one that sent a chill down Jake's spine. She didn't answer. Slowly, she reached into her handbag and pulled out an old photograph. She handed it to Jake, who took it with trembling hands. His heart skipped a beat as he looked at the photo. It was a black and white image of a house, his house. Standing in front of it was the same old woman, but she appeared much younger in the picture. Jake's breath caught in his throat as he flipped the photo over. Scrawled on the back was a date, September 13th, 1947. Suddenly, the air in the car grew colder. Jake turned to look at the woman, but the passenger seat was empty. The door hadn't opened, she had simply vanished. His hands shook as he stared at the empty seat, his mind racing. In the distance, something flickered. Jake looked up and saw a faint light down the road. It was his house, standing alone in the dark woods.